All right, midweek number 4. Let's do some review. So a pattern 1 sentence includes the subject and then and what. So if the subject part is the noun part, then the predicate part needs to have a verb, but specifically what kind of verb? An action verb. Always an action verb. Pattern 2 sentences also have a subject, also have an action verb, but they have that little extra information. Do you remember what that's called that completes the sentence? It is a DO, direct object. And true or false, a pattern 2 sentence always includes an indirect object. That one is false. You can have an indirect object, but you will not always have an indirect object. And in the present tense form, the direct object or indirect object will always come first. Which one always comes first in this spot or this spot? The indirect object will always come first, then the direct object, but only if you have an indirect object. So remember with the sentence pattern, if I had like, I gave you homework, right? The first one to look for right there, that is your gave action verb, right? And then who gave, that tells you your subject. So in that sentence, it'd be like, I gave. What did I give? I gave homework. So 3 would be my direct object. And who did I give it to? Gave it to you. So you would be your, it's coming in front of it, indirect object. So there are those answers. If you require them, just go ahead and pause the video. Hooray! Okay, so if we have happy Henry, Henry happy, Henry is happy. Obviously, which one of those 3 word groups is by itself a sentence? God, I hope you said C, because C is the only one that makes sense as a sentence. The others are like, I don't know, talking to someone who just went through a stroke or something. So the adjective happy by itself cannot make a statement about Henry, right? We need a verb there in order for it to be a complete sentence. So in C, the verb that is used is what word? Is. And the verb is helps turn the adjective happy into a statement about the subject. So who or what is happy? It would be the subject of Henry. So if we have Henry washed the car versus Henry is happy. All of those 2 sentences, because both are sentences, they both have verbs, but which one does not contain an action verb? It would have to be B. Because sure, you can do the action of washing something, but you can't do the action of ising something. Like, that makes no sense. So Henry is happy. So the verb is does not show any action. Instead, it links the adjective of happy to the subject that it describes, which of course is the word Henry. Henry is happy. Good for Henry. So Henry was a chairman. So in this sentence, the verb was is being used to link what noun to the subject Henry, which it identifies. So like, who was Henry? Oh, he was the chairman. So remember, linking verbs such as is or was or any form of be or have or do or whatever, they link a noun, a pronoun, or an adjective that follows it to the subject of the sentence, okay? And of course, be is the most commonly used linking verb. That's why I say it's the most important verb in the English language, or any language for that matter. So you need to make sure you have these forms of be memorized. Circle, star, highlight them if you do not have them memorized already. Is, am, are, was, were, and been. Most important words in the English language. So, if the crops blank good, which of those 2 forms can we use to link the adjective good to the subject crops? So we can say like the crops are good, or past tense we could say the crops were good. But obviously you're not going to say the crops is good, right? Because then you're going to sound unintelligent. I blank the first speaker. So again, which 2 forms of be can we link the noun speaker to the subject I? You could say I am the first speaker, or past tense, I was the first speaker. So we have seen that some action verbs can make complete statements about their subjects, but others do not. So like the engine started is fine by itself, but the engine uses, we need a direct object there. So which sentence does the action verb make a complete statement? I already kind of just told you. Which one was a full sentence? Oh, look at that. A. A was a full sentence. Whereas B, like I said, needs more information. Now, action verbs can do that. They can just be by themselves and be a complete sentence. But circle, star, highlight. Linking verbs can never make a complete statement about the subject. You will always need another word there. So for example, like the paint was ... was is a linking verb. I can't just have the subject and then the linking verb. I could if it was an action verb, but linking verb needs more information, right? Because what was the paint? So until we add a word that the linking verb can complete the subject with, or sorry, can connect the subject to, the meaning of the sentence is going to be complete or incomplete. It's going to be incomplete because we don't know what the paint was, right? Right. So now we know the paint was sticky. Okay, so we have added, we have now completed our sentence by adding in the complement sticky, which describes what subject, what was sticky, the paint. Remember, complement is just any word that's needed to be put at the end of the sentence to complete the sentence, right? Complement. And the previous complement we looked at were direct objects. So now instead of using an adjective to complete our sentence, we're going to use a noun as our complement to complete the sentence. So if we have Angela was, if that was just by itself, Angela was, it wouldn't make any sense. So we have to add in Angela was the driver. So what complement completes the meaning of the sentence and tells us who the heck Angela is? It'd have to be the noun driver. So circle, star, highlight. We have another definition that will never go away. Yay! So a complement, remember, complement just means completer, that follows a linking verb, and it has to be a linking verb, and it describes or identifies the subject, is called a predicate nominative, predicate adjective, or subject complement. Don't get all like overwhelmed by those three words. They all mean the same thing, okay? So I will always call them a subject complement because it complements, it finishes the subject, okay? Which brings us to the third subject pattern. So circle, star, highlight this chunk as well. You're going to have a subject. Instead of an action verb, you're going to have a linking verb, and then that subject complement will finish it off, and it will give us more information about the subject. So if we have a forest ranger guards our forest versus a forest ranger's life is rather lonely. The way to tell which of the two sentences is pattern 3 is to look at the verb, okay? So in A, we have the verb guards, which is an action verb. In B, we have the verb is, which is a linking verb. It's a form of be. So if we want to see which one's pattern 3, well, first of all, we would know it's B because it has this linking verb. But another way to check it is to see if the word describes the subject, okay? So like with A, guards, who guards? The forest ranger guards. What do they guard? They guard the forest. But those are two separate things. A ranger is not the same thing as the forest that it guards. Whereas in B, is, what is, life is. What is life? Life is lonely. That's depressing. That's funny. So lonely is life, right? It describes life. Life is lonely. It works both ways. One thing is discussed. So B would be pattern 3. All right. So same type of thing. Some cameras are very expensive. So we have the linking verb of are, and we got to ask ourselves, okay, what are cameras are? So then to find the subject complement, you ask yourself, what are cameras? Oh, cameras are expensive. Remember, the complement finishes off the sentence, because if I just said some cameras are, you'd be like, what are some cameras? But the subject complement finishes it off. They are expensive. I don't know how I just did that. Okay. So although a form of be can be used by itself as a linking verb, a lot of times it's just helping the main verb, right? Because it's a linking verb. So if we had the leaves are green versus the leaves are falling. both sentences have the verb are, but one has it being a linking verb, the other has it being a verb by itself, right? It's either helping an action verb or it's just by itself. So the way to tell is to look at the words at the end, right? We've got green and falling. So which sentences uses are as a helper to an action? Well, which of those two things can you do? Can you green something or can you fall? I would say fall, so that would be B. So then which sentence contains a subject complement? So which of the two describes the leaves? It would have to be green. A verb, falling, in this case, cannot describe anything, okay? So if the fans were cheering versus the fans were enthusiastic. Both of those have the words were in it, so they both have those same verbs, but one is being used as an aid, a helper to an action verb, while the other one is just being used as a subject complement. So the subject complement would have to be which the sentence, A or B? I hope you said B, because it finishes off with the subject complement of what word? Enthusiastic. Enthusiastic describes the fans. Whereas A, the fans are actively cheering. That is the action that they are doing. Alright, so be is not the only linking verb. Remember, there are lots of other linking verbs. Some other verbs can serve as linking verbs, such as like seem, become, appear, look, feel, and get, whatever it means to become. Why don't you go ahead and circle or highlight those. So if you see that word there, even if it's not a form of be, it might still be acting like a linking verb. So if we have the candidate appeared cheerful. So the linking verb in this sentence is what word? It would have to be appeared. But appeared can kind of look like an action verb, right? You don't necessarily see that word and think automatically, oh, linking. So you have to be careful with this, okay? And I'll explain how you can check it in a second. So if we are going to circle the two words that can be used as linking verbs with this sentence, so that cold describes the animals. We have feel, like, look, and avoid. So if the animals feel cold, does cold describe the animals? Absolutely. If the animals like the cold, does that describe the animals? No, that would be that they're liking some physical thing, right? The cold. So that one doesn't work. The animals look cold. That one works because, again, describes the animals. The animals avoid the cold. No, again, that would be something they're physically trying to avoid, so it would be something separate from itself. So we'd want to circle feel and look. Now, like I said a second ago, how can you tell if it looks like an action verb that it's acting like a linking verb? So the way to do that is to try putting a form of be, that is MR, was, or been, in its place. So like up here, the candidate is cheerful. That makes sense. Cheerful describes the candidate. The animals are cold. That makes sense. The cold describes the animals. So down here, the customer feels the material versus the weather feels muggy. Which of those two sentences can we put is in instead of feels, and the sentence makes sense? Either the customer is the material, like we're physically making clothing out of skin. Don't do that. Or the weather is muggy. Chances are you're going to go with B. So in which sentence is feels being used as a linking verb? Since we could replace it with a linking verb, it would have to be again, right? Because remember, the customer is not the material. Hopefully, unless you got a serial killer making clothing out of human skin. That gets into a different story. So the restaurant looked crowded. The speaker looked at his watch. So again, both sentences had the verb looked, but one is being used as an action word while the other one is being used as a linking verb. So which of those two can we substitute is in for looked and have it make sense? The restaurant is crowded or the speaker is at his watch? Obviously, you'd have to go with A. So then in which sentence is looked being used as a linking verb and then being followed by a subject complement that describes the subject? Well, either the watch is the speaker or crowded is the restaurant, and that would be A. So looked is being used as a linking verb in this sentence. All right. So there have been two types of complements. Remember, complement just means it finishes off a sentence. There's the direct objects and then the subject complements. So a direct object can only follow an action verb. That's important. Whereas a subject complement can only follow a what kind of verb? It has to be a linking verb. Put a big circle, star, highlight next to this one, okay? Maybe do all three of those things. This is just pure definition, okay? This is something that will never go away. We'll still be talking about it your senior year, so try to get it down now. But it really boils down to just the verb, either an action verb or a linking verb, okay? So usually the subject and the direct object are two different things. So the action passes from one of those things to the other thing, okay? So like with this one, the heavy downpour flooded many basements, we have the verb, action verb of flooded. What flooded? The downpour flooded. So downpour would be my subject. What did the downpour flood? It flooded the basements. Direct object. So you notice the action passes from downpour to the basements because that's what they flooded. But the downpour is not the same thing as the basements, right? Those are two separate things being discussed. But a subject complement always means the same thing as the subject, or it describes the subject. So in that case, we deal with one thing, not two. So if Mrs. Ford hired a lawyer versus Mrs. Ford is a lawyer, the noun lawyer in both sentences is the same, but in one sentence it's the direct object, the other it's the subject complement. So which one has it being the subject complement because it describes Mrs. Ford? That would have to be B, right? Whereas A, she hired a lawyer, that's somebody totally separate from herself. The owner of the restaurant hired a new cook. The owner of the restaurant is the cook. So again, both sentences have the noun cook, but one has it being a direct object, the other has it being the subject complement. So which one has it being the subject complement because it's the same person as the owner? That would have to be B, right? Is, who is, the owner is, what is the owner? The owner is the cook. Whereas A, hired, who hired, the owner hired, what did they hire? Oh, they hired a new cook, someone separate from themselves. Action verb, linking verb. So the owner of the restaurant is energetic. So because the adjective energetic describes the subject owner and is not like a separate noun or anything like that, it is the same person being discussed. Is energetic a subject complement or a direct object? It complements the subject. It describes it, so it would have to be a subject complement. Okay? Otters are animals. Otters are playful animals. In both sentences, the noun animals is being used as a subject complement because in both cases they describe the otters. But in sentence B, you'll notice we also have the adjective playful, which is used to describe the noun animals. So in sentence B, is the subject complement the adjective playful or the noun animals? I hope you said animals because animals are otters, otters are animals. But otters are playful, playful are otters. Not necessarily the case because there's that noun there. This adjective connects to that noun. Adjectives will always connect to a certain noun or pronoun, but we'll talk about that more next week. So, this shallow lake often gets extremely rough, okay? So same way we did with finding direct objects last week, we're going to start off with looking for the verb. So what is the linking verb in this sentence? Even though it looks like an action verb, it is the verb gets. Now why isn't that an action? Because remember we can replace it with is. This shallow lake often is extremely rough, and it still makes sense. So a linking verb of gets. So then you gotta find your subject. Okay, what gets? The lake gets. So lake would be my subject. What does the lake get? It gets rough. Is the lake rough? Yes. Does rough describe the lake? Yes. One thing being discussed? Yes. So you know you got your subject complement correct. So there are your answers if you require them. Okay. Hera was the powerful queen of the old Greek gods. So same way we just did, find the linking verb first. And remember, this is where the forms of be come in handy, okay? These are the words that you need to memorize. It'll make your life so much easier if you just memorize them. We got was. So, linking verb was. Who or what was? Hera. Hera is my subject. Hera was. What was Hera? Was she powerful? Or was she queen? Or was she gods? Which of those three describe Hera? It would have to be queen. Queen was Hera. Hera was queen. Powerful sounds correct, but remember this is an adjective connecting to that noun. So it would have to be queen. So Hera is queen. Which even just that alone, right? It sounds like a sentence. Like Hera is queen. Oh, that makes sense. Cool. An officer should feel responsible for those in his unit. So we want the linking verb. And there's actually two words here to put down as your linking verb. What are they? It is should and feel, right? So should feel, who should feel, subject of officer should feel. What should the officer feel? They should feel responsible. So officer should feel responsible. Which again, it sounds like a sentence when you find all those different spots, those different parts, sorry. The drunken driver is the greatest danger on our highways today. Right, so what is my verb here? My linking verb is. Who or what is? The drunken driver is. What is the drunken driver? They are a danger. So driver is danger. Okay. And there you go if you need those. Okay, cool. So the young children in the back seat were becoming very restless. Alright, so this is a longer sentence, but it still has the same components, okay? Start off with my linking verb. Where do you see a form of be? I see were. We're becoming, actually. So we're becoming. Who or what were becoming? Subject of the children were becoming. What were the children becoming? They were becoming, subject complement, restless. Does restless describe the children? Yep. Are the children restless? Yep. One thing being discussed? Yep. So you know you got it right. Children were becoming restless. Sentence. The coach of the other team was looking worried. What's my verb here? We have was looking, right? Who or what was looking? Is it the team or the coach? Which of the two was looking? It would be the coach was looking. And what was the coach looking? He or she was looking worried. Subject complement. Now, sometimes you might have a sentence like this one where you have a linking verb and an action verb, okay? You have a subject complement and a direct object, and maybe even too an indirect object, okay? This is why I say it's important to look at the verb, the type of verb, whether it be an action verb or a linking verb. But the other way to check yourself is to think like how many things are being discussed. Does this describe the subject, in which case it's a subject complement, or is the action done by the subject to something else, in which case it's a direct object. So if we have the sentence, the students became obnoxious when the teacher gave them their homework. All right. So first verb we see, I see gave, right? Action verb is easy. Okay. So if that's an action verb, we know we're talking about this column. So gave. So who gave? The students or the teacher? Which of the two? Because I see both nouns. Obviously, teacher. Teacher would be my subject. What did the teacher give? They gave homework. So homework would be your direct object. Now, do we know who the teacher gave the homework to? We do, and it is coming in front of the direct object. It is them, right? The teacher gave homework to them. So my indirect object. But I still have stuff over here. What's my verb over here that's a linking verb? We've got became. Who became? The students became, subject. What did the students become? They were obnoxious. Does obnoxious describe the students? Describe, I can speak. Does obnoxious describe the students? Yes. Are the students obnoxious? Yes. So is that a subject complement? Absolutely yes. Okay. So there are those. I do want you guys to draw a chart on your midweek though. So there's another video for that, kind of similar to last week. And then you can go ahead to the worksheet. So let me know if you have questions. Yay!